Hi, everyone, and welcome to day 4 of our Creative and Cultural Corridor. This is our last session for GSWF 2021, and we are really excited to be closing off with today's featured work, which is Ecofeminism and Intersectional Environmentalism by Vidushi and Medhavini Yadav from India. Before we begin, I'll start with some housekeeping rules as usual, and then we'll go right into our session. So, as participants, please turn off your videos and mute your microphones. If you're experiencing any slow bandwidth, please close unnecessary programs or applications on your device. Feel free to use the public chat box to engage with one another or with the speakers throughout the session. This session is being live streamed to ERA Asia Pacific's Facebook page, and the recording will be available publicly afterwards. ERA Asia Pacific is committed to making GSWF 2021 an inclusive and safe digital environment, and we will not tolerate harassment of any kind, including but not limited to deliberate intimidation and sustained disruption of discussion. Participants are obliged to be respectful and to avoid replicating societal prejudices and inequalities. Participants who engage in disruptive behavior may be removed without prior notice. Welcome, everyone. My name is Nadia. I'm a communications officer with ERA Asia Pacific, and I'll be moderating our session for today. I'd like to just jump right into it and start off with a showcase of the art that Vidushi and Medhavini both submitted to GSWF 2021. And as I share it on screen, I would like to ask Vidushi and Medhavini to talk a little bit about the art that comes up. First up, we have Medhavini's piece. So I'll just share that now.
Awesome. Hi, I'm Medhavini, and this is my artwork, which is on intersectional environmentalism. What I understand by this term and what my art shows here is my imagination of a world where we care about people and the planet, and and I really like, it's a dream, it's an imagination that I really want us as human beings to stop, to to understand the real meaning of development, and stop killing the indigenous wisdom in the name of the capitalist definition of development. And with whatever is going around us, we know that the world is on fire. We all know that. And the way I see it, it also gives us a space to dream and imagine the world that we would like to rebuild for our children and our future generations. I have been dreaming about a world that is built on love, care, trust as the guiding principles, which has inclusivity, which has care for every living being. My art piece here is a dreamscape, a community-driven world where modern ways of living are informed by indigenous ways of being, where life and just being is precious, and you don't have to be a slave of corporate ideas of productivity and performance. Through my artwork, I reimagine what the word's development actually looks like. What does it mean to live well, to eat well, to sleep well, and to thrive? A world where we are taken care of by the community we choose to surround ourselves with, where humans live together with animals in nature and not competing with them. Just how our ancestors used to live, with joy and play as being a big part of our lives. Joy is a very important concept for me, and we can't reimagine what is a developed community without joy. How can we cultivate joy is the question. I frequently ask this question to myself, and I want to realign my life constantly that I get the answer. But for some reason, the modern definition of development has a very different meaning. It means big skyscrapers, cities full of them, maybe little patches of extremely groomed gardens, maybe a zoo in between. But that's all in the name of nature, wilderness, nicely packed in a box. There are no butterflies, no fireflies to play with for our children or for ourselves. No mysteries and wilderness, just a tamed, uh, predictable future. I do question myself if that's living well, but we know that there is an alternate way of living also, because we have seen that our ancestors have lived that. Our indigenous communities are still trying to live that. We need to realign our world, our policies, and our way of being with the nature and the mysteries of joy. The changes cannot see. It's very important that we see the changes in on an individual level, but we need these individuals actually can have a ripple effect, and the changes should happen in the level of policy making and law making. So with this artwork, I want to imagine a future of inclusivity and a place for everybody. Thank you. This is what I want to say about this piece.
Thank you so much, Medhavini. You've raised so many really pertinent issues to what not only GSWF, but ERO and the larger feminist and environmental movement is about. And I'm excited to be able to go a bit more in depth into these questions with you after this. I'll move on to Vidushi's piece now. Vidushi, if you'd like to talk a bit about what you submitted.
Hi everyone, my name is Vidushi. I'm an archivist and illustrator from India, and I work with a bunch of feminist organizations. Um, my work talks about gender justice, climate activism, and right based content rooted in ethical representation of women in marginalized communities. This artwork that I created, that you see here, is a very personal piece coming from a very personal place of conflict and confusion. Last couple of years have been incredibly difficult for everyone, and exactly same for me as well. Everybody has suffered, and I have too, from diseases, pandemic, forest fires, oppressive extractive policies by our governments. Many such movements we have seen in the last couple of years, and we've seen so much together. Like all of us together, we have seen so much. For me personally, last 2 years have been incredibly confusing more than anything. It has been very hard for me to articulate my feelings. They started becoming so overlapped. Like there have been times when I did not know what exactly I've been upset about. And since images and illustrations are my first language, and I tend to create art when I'm upset or when I want some clarity in my head. And this artwork is the outcome of one such time, one such moment when I was so upset listening to the news of sufferings, destruction, animals burning in the forest fires, people dying because of collapsing healthcare infrastructure, especially in India. My social media was filled with SOS calls on emergency needs for medicines, oxygens, and other COVID related information. And everything started feeling so purposeless. Like, what is the point on anything? And I started feeling like that towards my work as well, towards all the efforts that we were putting in to be alive, to keep our loved ones alive. Um, Anyway, so during one such low moment, I drew this, and I was reminded of Varshan Shayar's poem when I was drawing this, which is called What They Did Yesterday Afternoon. And I would like to recite that because it perfectly captures the essence of the artwork I created. And of course, with a lot of gratitude, respect, and of course, credits to Varshan Shayar. Um, the poem goes like this. They set my aunt's house on fire. I cried the way women on TV do, holding at the middle like a 5 pound note. I called the boy who used to love me, tried to okay my voice. I said hello. He said, Varshan, what's wrong? What's happened? I've been praying, and these are what my prayers look like. Dear God, I come from two countries. One is thirsty, another one is on fire. Both need water. Later that night, I held an atlas in my lap, ran my fingers across the whole world, and whispered, "Where does it hurt?" It answered, "Everywhere, everywhere, everywhere." And I totally believe that everything is burning. And basically, I totally echo with what Medhavini said, that when everything is burning, that's where we grow from ground zero, and that's where we build from literally scratch, and we reimagine a new world. Thank you so much. That's what I'll have to say about my artwork.
Thank you so much, Vidushi. Sorry, just figuring out this. All right. No, thank you so much for sharing that and for saying Warsan's poem as well. Warsan's work really speaks to a lot of people, and I'm familiar with her work as well. And it's interesting that you draw parallels between your work and that poem specifically, because I think there's a lot, looking at the art that you submitted. I think some people might look at it as um, something somewhat pessimistic. You see that the world's on fire, right? But I think that there's no way forward without honesty. Like there's no way to progress or make change if you don't recognize the gravity or the seriousness of the situation. And I think that's what Warsan's poem does. Like she has so much work that talks about the experience, the refugee experience, the experience of the other, and her life in the UK and things like that. And I think there's definitely parallels in what you're doing as well, talking about naming the thing first before you can address it. So thank you so much for recognizing those, sharing with us those influences that you have. Before we go super, a bit more in depth into the thematic issues and the questions of the environment, I just have some general questions for both of you about your art. We at ERA are very familiar with your art. Your wonderful art that has provided recordings for so much of our work. But behind me is Medhavini's work that I think was done for, I can't remember which campaign specifically, but every time I have it as my background, I get so many compliments for it, and it's really beautiful. It's always a wonderful addition to any meeting. And Vidushi, I mean, your work was for GSWF 2020, which we've used this year, and it's always really uplifting to see. And it really, both of your work really capture the spirit of what ERO is doing super well. So I'm really happy to have both of you here today. I'd just like to ask both of you how you got started in each of your how both of you got started in art, really, like where you began. Was it something that you both started from childhood, and how it's progressed since then, if you'd like to just talk about it in general?
Sure, I'll go first. So I think there was a time in my life when I was really questioning what I'm doing in my life, and I was in a corporate job. I went through a very traditional way of education, basically graduation and post graduation, and I'm a graduation in design and post graduation in design, and all my colleagues were working in big corporate companies, and that's exactly what I've been doing. But there was a part of me which was feeling that maybe this is not making me happy, and this is not enough for me. And I like since childhood, feminism and women's rights and gender rights, gender justice have been something very close to my heart, and I've been constantly educating myself and reading about women's stories and experiences like this. I consume content like this. I watch movies which are aligned to feminism, and so it came very organically to me. Like there was a time in my life when I very consciously decided that I don't want to do a corporate job, and I want to talk about what I want to talk about, like have a voice in my work, and I want to make art professionally. And that's where I started, I think 2 years back, with my AVID's report on feminist realities. That was one of the first work that I've done in these as a full-time freelancer. And then after that, my work and the essence, I think it it connected to people in some way, and from one work to another work, and now I work with a lot of organizations that I used to dream about working with. And yeah, I'm excited. I'm excited to see where it goes. I'm excited to see how I learn more. I'm excited to just explore this.
Thanks, Vidushi. I'm actually really surprised to hear that you've only been doing it for 2 years, because I think you have your pulse on so much of the themes and of the feminist movement, and it reflects so well in your work. So yeah, you do a fantastic job of it. Medhavini, would you like to go?
Yeah. So my education is totally different. I'm a trained textile designer. But and I actually initially when I started I was working with sustainable textiles. So that was giving me peace that I am working with sustainability and sustainable textiles. But as I went deeper into it, I started to understand the real meaning of sustainability. That what I was doing is actually the popular narrative around sustainability, which is being used. The word sustainability is being used like anything these days by corporate companies, by H&M and everything. So now, when I understood that this is, what I'm doing is actually not aligned with what I actually think of doing. I started with a good heart and with a good note. Then I have to have the this things that I have put my 5 years into it. Now, point has come that what do I do now? Shall I continue? And so this took me around 6-7 months to decide that I cannot be I cannot keep doing this for the rest of it, because this is a false narrative. I was earning money and everything, uh, but I was called for talks on sustainability, and I there was nothing that I could actually say, because on paper it was all sustainable and everything, uh, but the reality is something different. When we think about consumption, a lot of undercurrent of sustainability is that we ignore. And as like if like me and Vidushi are sisters, so there's a lot of this sustainability, feminist, that discussion used to happen. It's like our dinner table in a family. So around that time, like in one such discussion, she asked me, like, do you want to come with me, and we can actually co-create this report. This one project has come in. So I think, yeah, let's just do it. It was a one project thing, and then our ideas. Then we made a good team in that industry, and was her for 2 years, and we had been working together. Yeah.
Thanks for sharing that, Medhavini. I was actually going to ask that as well, because I do know your sisters. Just thinking about what does that mean for the two of you to be working together? Because it sounds like you have different backgrounds in terms of where you've come from. Getting to this point in the feminist movement, working in this field. How has your work influenced each other's, if it has or if it hasn't? Like, what does collaboration look like to the two of you?
Vidushi, you want to go first?
Yeah, I'll go. I'll tell my side of things, and you can probably say what do you think about this.
Yeah.
So, so for me, I think we've been very close since we were children, And I used to go to Medhavini. I'm the younger one, so I used to go to Medhavini with a lot of my adult issues or teenage issues. And when I saw my work picking up, and when I saw Medhavini at a point where she was, trying to figure out a lot of things in realigning her work and realigning her values, and I could not think of anybody else who's better than this, like who's better at being my partner, completely hand in hand, completely sort of sharing the responsibility, somebody I can completely trust with, because it's a very personal work for me. And um, and I don't know, like now when I look back, I don't really um, I don't. It's a partnership, and because we are sisters, it's metaphorically also very connected to our you know feminist values and the kind of work we do. It it just goes very hand in hand, and sometimes we don't even have to explain. Like, I don't have to give her the brief of the project, or uh, what is it that I have in mind, and we just um, uh, in a holiday together, we are brainstorming on a project. So it really comes very organically to us now, and it's a very joyful process. It's a because my work is such that with every new work I learn about another aspect of what feminism means to another community, what feminism means to a particular indigenous community, and what is their way of protecting their land, their people, their community. And it's a constant learning process. So it's just that our work has provided both of us new ways of connecting with each other, both personally and professionally. It's just that we are constantly sharing stories, constantly sharing the direction of our growth, and it's beautiful. I would I actually look forward to a lot of partnerships that we're going to do together, and a lot of growth that we're going to have together through our work.
That's really lovely to hear. Madhavini, would you like to say?
So I'll go now. So as she said that like our brainstorming sessions and our project brief and all that, that actually never felt as work for me, because before even being in this field of because before, even before we were in college and all that, we had similar discussions. We had discussions about what's happening in the world women, what is really the discussion. In we would have so much of exposure of the entire world. So the discussion was of a neighborhood, and that gradually expanded, and we now discuss about the world and whatever we. So we bring a lot of uh, knowledge and information to each other. Also, uh, if there is certain thing that we are that one person is not able to understand the other person's perspective, or we actually bring different perspectives to a situation also, which is a great part of our partnership. And it all, yeah, as Vidushi said, it all is very organic, and it never felt like work. So yeah, like I never I'm pretty happy, and we make a good team also, because our personalities are pretty different, and she is the this charged up women, and I am this calm woman. So we bring both part of the personality to the business, and it's going pretty good, and I'm very happy about it.
That's so nice to hear. I mean, it sounds like you have very complementary and supportive working styles, and that's really, I feel that's really crucial. I mean, the work that you do within the feminist movement, it's really key, but it also can be very heavy work, I feel. As you said, you are learning a lot, but sometimes the stories themselves can be very intense. And I imagine that having someone to think this through and talk this through and sort of hold your hand through it makes it more a more nourishing space. And this question just comes from my own personal curiosity, because when I was a freelancer, I was a rapporteur, and so the kind of recording and documentation I did was text based. And with text, the challenge is always it's always about being succinct, but also capturing everything in a very detailed way. But I have a lot of time after the event to do it. So I've always admired the way that graphic recorders specifically do your work. The way that you distill these very complex ideas. You don't simplify them, but you make them, very easy to access and to digest. So just on a sort of a technical sense, would you be able to tell me how you do this? How you decide what goes in a graphic recording piece? How you figure out what direction to take a particular event recording, things like that, if you wouldn't mind sharing.
Yeah, I'll share about this. So actually, now you're asking this question, so I am thinking like that. But it actually, I never broke the part of a graphic recording in that way. Never thought about it in that way. But the best part of a graphic recording exercise is that I get to listen to such passionate women. They are very clear about what they say. So it's never a difficulty. And I have worked with a lot of organizations, and everybody is very supportive. Uh, in previously also, like before the main event, I get whatever information I want. I get a lot of information from the organization that how the mood needs to be. So that gives a lot of the pre-preparation, basically gives a lot of clarity to it, because honestly that those 3 hours or those 1.5 hour or 2 hours is little less to put in the entire essence. So there's a lot of pre-work that needs to be done for any particular graphic recording. So yeah, a good homework, good preparation about that particular event, and the clarity with which the participants come makes the job a lot easier. Yeah, that's it from my side. I think I have answered your first question, or at least I've tried to.
No, you definitely did, and you made me realize that I'm bringing a bit of my own bias in terms of thinking that it's heavy work, but it doesn't always have to be. And it's good to hear that your experience of it has been something that's you've been working with very generous communities and organizations. It sounds like. Vidushi, do you have anything you want to add to that?
Not so much, because Medhavini is the person who does graphic recording most of the times. I'm just in the supporting role for that, especially in the graphic recording work that we do. Um, but yeah, just like Medhavini said, a lot of it comes from understanding the context and understanding the objective and the vision of the meeting beforehand. So this is what we do, and most of our work is very rooted in the research. So even before like we start working on something, we like to do our research well, so that we know what context are we talking about, what nuances to bring in the artwork, etc. So I think that's what we do. We prep well before the conference, before the event, and we read all that's available, so that we are ready to for the surprises. And there are surprises in the meetings, but I guess it gets easier with the experiences, and it's challenging, but it's also very fun. It's also like a very packed event, full of learning, full of so many new ideas, which makes it really fun and really interesting. So yeah, just I think the early homework that we do, it's there.
Thanks for sharing that, Vidushi. Can I just check, both the pieces you submitted, were they created after the start of COVID?
Sorry, I think
Both the pieces that each of you submitted, were they created after the pandemic started, during COVID?
during COVID, yes, yes. For me,
Okay,
yes.
Yeah. Yes.
okay. Because I was just wanted to ask a bit more about what effect the pandemic has had on your art. I think you talked about it in your descriptions of the pieces, and I found that very affecting because it's, I'm not an artist, but I related to that sense of, um, desperation and anger that you were feeling, right? You're saying that the whole world is on fire. But I really just love to hear a bit more if you could talk about, what's going, I mean, not asking what's going on in India, it's a huge question, but just talking about your experience of what the sort of the past year and a half has been and how that has filtered into the kind of art that you're creating or want to create.
Yes. Um, okay, so I think a very important part of our work is, and I think I've spoken about this in a couple of places as well, is the fact, just like you also mentioned, it's also tends to be a very heavy work, heavy as in like emotionally heavy work. Sometimes knowing about all these experiences and all these traumas, um, it sort of triggers something in you, and for a very long time during the beginning of my work, I would not know how to handle all this. I did not know how to handle knowing about so much suffering in the world, and how to how to carry that with me. um, yeah, so I think a lot of this channels into the artwork as well. So we want to sort of take what it gives us, but also we like I also want to keep healing myself as well. So last 2 years, of course, on a personal front, on a professional front, on the global front, everybody was going through so much, and the kind of work that also we were asked to do was also very much aligned to the global suffering, to the suffering of everybody as one unit, and yeah, personally, I started going in therapy, and I started channeling, a lot of this suffering into my work, a lot of what I wanted to say about all of this, how I wanted to articulate all of this into my work, and I wanted to talk more about it, more intently. I wanted to talk about it. Made me investigate a lot of representational ideas as well, like how we want to represent a lot of things, and how representing stereotypes in development community, in a lot of gender-based violence, etc., is in fact giving in to those triggers to the women who have gone through, let's say, violence based on gender and stuff like that. So a lot of investigation also came from uh, whatever I've been through in the last 2 years, and that has channeled into my work. But yeah, it's like I said, it's a very personal work, and it goes hand in hand with our personal journeys, and whatever is happening in the world, and the news that we read, the all the movements happening around the world. So it is emotionally, sometimes it's tiresome, sometimes it requires us to uh, stop, wait, recover, rest, all of that. We are also learning how to sort of be the best version of ourselves while doing this work that we very much want to do and we are very passionate about. But yeah, it's a learning process.
Sorry, Medhavini, would you like to add on to that?
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, COVID has been a really, really tough time, personally, professionally, and like it has shifted a lot of things in me. If I talk about me personally, because I have. I have started seeing the world in a different light. Sometimes there have been really hopeless, really low days, and then like it just seemed that what is the point? There have been, so I don't know how to articulate this. This is a very complicated thought that we work, you know, on a good with a good heart and everything, and then we see such injustice happening in the world, and sometimes I just want to put my pen down and just sleep and lie down and do nothing, because sometimes I just felt that what is the point, what am I doing, what is the point of just doing all that, such bad things are happening around us. But uh, with this work I have also realized the importance of self-care, the importance of actually when I'm not able to take it, I actually started doing physical changes in my life. That I'm not able to take it, I will unfollow the pages of news. It actually I suffered so much with the news that I was on a point of being unfunctional. So I have my pockets of distress. I shut down from everything, I shut down from the world, and then when I am ready to face it again, I come up, I work again. Also, as my art piece speaks, I have also understood the importance of joy, the importance of seeing joy in whatever we can see, because there is so much of suffering anyway. So to seek joy in the smallest of things, in a smile of a child, patting a dog, talking to a cat, all those things. That gives me power, and it has also given me a lot of grounding, that there is only this much that I can do. There are such bigger forces which are playing in the world. So I am a very small part of it, and I will try doing my best, whatever is in my capacity, to create that ripple effect. My portion, like whatever I can do, and so yeah, because I am inconsequential yet very powerful. So that has somehow started sinking. I have my days, I have my moments yet, but I am somehow just trying to say truth.
Thank you so much, both of you, for sharing that. It's, I mean, I think you're speaking for a lot of us when you talk about how intense COVID has been in so many ways, and it really highlights the need to really kind of actively seek joy, and find new ways of like kind of balancing our contributions to the movement, with also taking care of ourselves. Um, and what I really love about both of your work is that there's so much um, homogeneity in art. Um, and what you very intentionally do, I think, is provide a counterpoint. You both have very distinctive styles. And it's very clear that how intentional you are in the way that you are representing things. I think, like you said, Vidushi, you're really trying hard not to replicate the oppressions that you see in your art. You're trying to find new ways of um, uh, having these communities be seen and talked about. I was This is slightly off topic, but it made me think of an article I read recently talking about uh, how why so much of contemporary art styles are similar, and it's a style called corporate Memphis. I don't know if yeah, I'm sure you as artists know this, but just for the audience, corporate Memphis is that kind of style that you see a lot with like tech startups, where it's lots of oversized limbs and faceless features and kind of thing. So I'm just going to read a short quote from an article that I read. What makes corporate Memphis particularly insidious is that its worldview is designed to be misleading. It depicts a world whose problems are already solved, built out of complementary components. It's a deliberate oversimplification. It tends to put the viewer on the same plane as the objects and the figures in the illustrations, which makes distortions like bendy arms easy to decipher, a pre-solved visual puzzle. The limited color palette and lack of depth offers a uniquely uncomplicated view of the world. And I thought that was super interesting because there was something so alienating about the art that I couldn't really place, and that's so in contrast to the kind of work that you do, like the pieces that we shared just now that you submitted. There's so much texture to it. There's so much color. There's so much life. And I think that's really fantastic. And I think you're doing something really powerful with it. And I would say that this links to the question that Pri has in the chat, where she's asking, where she'd like to say, to hear your thoughts on the role that art and illustration can play in feminist and environmental activism. I think that's a very huge question, and I think that's something that we're trying to address overall in this session. But if you would like to just share your thoughts on it, I'd love to hear that.
Yeah, and sure, I would. And like you said, it's a very huge question, and um, I don't know if the answer exists, and it's a constant investigation that I'm also having through my art and through the exploration of what's possible. Because I totally agree with the article that you shared, and I have read about it, and even before reading about it, I have felt so disconnected with the art that was shared everywhere, especially in the tech startups, especially in the startups who have a very very bad ways of conducting their business, like Facebook, like all the big tech startups. uh, and yeah, like there is a difference between showing a utopia, right? There is a difference between showing that everything um, is okay in the world, and it's basically not acknowledging the problems so many communities are facing, the injustice so many communities are facing. And it's just showing a world where none of these problems exist, which is definitely a very, very harmful way of portraying people. And especially whenever, uh, and yeah, and whenever we are talking about people, especially whenever we are drawing people, we have to be very careful, we have to be very educated about their context, and which is a very difficult thing to do. For example, whenever we show representation of women who have gone through violence, we show bruised eyes or bruised faces and all of that, which triggers so many people to relive their own traumas. And we know that so many women have gone through gender-based violence in one way or the other. And just by making images like that, we are making them relive their traumas. So representation is so much more than just showing different type of women, different ethnicity of women, different body types, and all of that. Representation is that nuance that you understand and you empathize with their context, and um, and a constant investigation and a constant intention of being fair to them, or and an intention to learn from them, to ask for the consent, also to ask if this is how I represent you, if this is okay for you, or if not, tell me how to best represent you. Like, it's being open, and it's a constant journey. Like, I really think that the essence of my work is to find the way to represent people in their power, in the best of my capacity, and by asking them that, tell me how to represent you. Like, I don't know how to represent a particular indigenous community without understanding their context. I want to ask them, tell me how to write about you, how to show, how to draw about you, how to um, take photographs of you, what is respectful towards you. So I think that's a very important question, and I don't know if the answer exists. maybe the answer exists in the practice, but that is a big question, and I really try to be fair and be um, to basically responsible in the representation. This is my basic intention of the work.
I really, sorry, just to say that, I really appreciate you saying that. And, um, you're right that there isn't one answer, but you acknowledging the fact that um, you have to, when you don't know something, it's okay to say that you don't know, and you have to ask these communities. And I think that acknowledgement of ignorance, whether willful or otherwise, is a huge part of the feminist movement. I think like acknowledging that there are gaps in our knowledge. Like, I am not a feminist just because I'm a woman, just because I'm from the global south, just because I'm, whatever other oppressed identities I may occupy. um, it's about recognizing that, it's, we don't speak for other people. I hate that concept. It's an awful way of thinking, because it's, it puts you in a position of, it reminds me of something that came up in an earlier session during GSWF, where we were talking about how in the environmental justice movement, there's this tendency or this insistence on looking at people from the global south as purely vulnerable and as victims, and the global north being saviors, and in terms of the climate movement, and just the global south always needing to be saved. And it takes away the agency that we have. And I think what you're talking about in the way that you approach your art reflects that as well, because it is really about saying that you know best what is happening with you. You know best how you should be represented, and better than that, how you want to be represented. And I think this sort of, I don't know if humility is the right word, but I think this is the kind of practice that really needs to be foregrounded in any sort of feminist movement, recognizing that yes, there are things that I bring to the table, but what you bring to the table yourself, I don't know, and I actually have to do the asking, and I have to have that curiosity and care.
Yeah.
Sorry, but yeah, that was a. I just really appreciated your answer. Medhavini, would really love to hear your thoughts on this as well.
Yeah, so the representation power part is already taken care by Vidushi. Like one thing I want to add in this, that representation in terms of art, and also like when we do not give power to the marginalized people to say a particular story, to say my story, then somebody else is saying my story. Somebody else is making that particular policy or law on my behalf. When that comes, my representation will definitely go for a toss, because having that empathy, that I need to understand or listen to your part, comes with a lot of maturity, which really lacks in our policy papers these days. Where, like after coming to the art part, I think art also brings a lot of awareness, which is the second major important part of art in feminist and environmental movements. Because what I want to do through my art is normalize the hush hush topics, to bring them to have a normal discussions on dinner tables. When there are certain so many topics that we just don't want to talk about, and because we don't want to talk about, we do not want to understand what that there are real people involved in it with real feelings. So art actually does that also to a great extent. Also, third point I would like to say that understanding art also, like the representation or art, making art in a certain way, also should make people understand their privileges, because everybody has privileges and everybody is underprivileged to a certain extent. In my opinion, privilege is actually a spectrum. I could be privileged to certain communities, to certain things, and I could be because of everything, because of my gender, because of my color, because of my past. My privileges are one by one taken away. So I want my art to make people understand their privileges, so that they have a ear to understand or to listen to somebody else's story also.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that. I think, what you're saying about the role of art to to surface what is often hidden. I think that's really key. It's a way into really difficult topics that might be too challenging if you dive right into them. But the art that you create is providing a way, a different lens, and it allows people to think about it um, in new ways. And I really love that you're doing that. Really, um, I'm just curious now about the where you see your work going. I mean, it sounds like this past year and a half, there's been a lot of challenges, but also a lot of potential for growth and for change. And is there anything that you're working on, personal projects that you're working on right now, anything that you're hoping to bring to, whether it's the feminist movement or the environmental justice movement, anything that's coming up for you, really?
Um, okay, so basically, me and Medhavini have been talking, and we are sort of reimagining and dreaming about a studio, which uh, which works specially for the development community, for the feminist movements, and and which takes care of the representation bit, because I don't think that a lot of people are working towards it, and they're not focusing on the images especially. And I really think that the power and the potential of images are really um, not tapped. Like people are uh, making images and clicking photographs and posting them thoughtlessly, without thinking about how it affects a certain community, how it sort of the kind of work they are doing, the community they are serving, how the images are maybe, pushing that back, or are disrespectful towards the communities they are, set out to sort of actually serve. So I think development community, I really think that maybe that can be a space that we can grow towards, maybe a studio where we are talking about and we are working towards good image making practices, um, for development communities, for feminist movements, and maybe have our art in most prominent, most exciting feminist movements around the world. That's what we were thinking, and we were also thinking that we'll have a think tank or a think studio sort of a thing in under that studio, and we'll make a lot of personal projects as well, tackling the stereotypes that we see around us, um, and basically see where it goes. It's a dream, and we don't know exactly. It's not very well structured, but this is where we see us working towards in coming years.
No, that sounds really wonderful. When you say targeted towards development communities, are you talking about teaching other artists, as you said, best practices for representation, or are you also talking about going into the communities themselves and teaching them art, or is it both?
I don't think that. I don't know. Maybe it's both. Uh, but I don't think a lot of teaching is involved in it, because I really learn from them as of now. Maybe, I don't know, maybe some later part of the, maybe after, in maybe in 5 years, we'll think about that. But right now, we really think that we are in a learning phase, and we learn from the indigenous communities, and we learn from a lot of communities. But there are basic principles that everybody can follow and ensure that people are represented respectfully, especially when people are involved who are not often talked about, people who are not on the table, and they are being talked about. Like you're talking about some other community, so what are the best practices? And some of the basic ones, like bring somebody from that community on the table, some very obvious ones, but these are great practices to have. And probably we are thinking about uh, maybe making a structure, a system where these practices can be followed in a more organic and systematic manner, so that people, even the funding organizations, if you're bringing help in a way that can empower people, that would be great. You're already doing so much work, so might as well do it in such a way that really, really empowers people. So that's what we were thinking as of now.
I think that sounds really wonderful because, I think as Marissa is saying, including people that you're speaking about or speaking for, um, should be an obvious thing to do, but it's not often the process for inclusion. And I think being really intentional and being very specific in this is a really good way of approaching it. And I think I know you said that you're in a learning phase, and I really admire that. But I think people have a lot to learn from you as well, and it sounds like a wonderful plan. And I really hope it comes to fruition. Pre says that there are indigenous art styles also, and so maybe encouraging communities to use their own art to represent themselves. This is sort of what I was speaking to as well. I think,
Yeah.
yeah, when I say teaching, I didn't mean like teaching technique necessarily, but
Yes.
sort of creating that platform and that space for them to do it, and then helping, making these connections and facilitating, because I think that would be a really wonderful
Right.
thing to do.
And that these like this session gives me so many ideas, and thank you, Priyanti. Like, yeah, it is a wonderful idea. Like, there are so many folk arts. People make art to document amazing moments in their life, to celebrate things in their life. And those folk arts, those indigenous arts would be a great place to start with. And I sometimes it surprises me that it is not mainstream like as of now. It should be. People should choose how they want to represent themselves. And I think that is very basic, and maybe we can start from there.
Thanks, Vidushi. We just have a couple of minutes left. Just checking if anyone in the audience has any other questions for Vidushi or Medhavini. Okay. If there are no questions, I'd love to just give you some final words that you'd like to leave us with. Would you like to say anything?
Yes, I would like to say that I'm very thankful for this, for providing us this platform. And honestly, the question and answers gave us so many ideas, and it's amazing. And it's amazing because it's the first time that me and Medhavini both are together in one session, and we are hearing each other talking about each other and talking about what our work means to each other and what we would like to explore. And also, so many ideas we got from you guys, and I really appreciate you coming and engaging with the conversation. Um, just very, very grateful.
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm very happy to be here. And actually, this idea of including folk arts is actually a very, very good idea. And like I know a lot of Indian folk arts those happen in the remotest of the corners of the country, but they represent the story in such a good manner, and that can be included in our art. That's such a great idea. And about the teaching thing, what Vidushi was saying initially in our future plannings, we are not planning to teach anybody or anything. But what really we want as a personal project is mm, to bring this idea of representation to kids, to babies, mm, to what we see in kids literature. So we were just talking and thinking, if we start from there, if there is a change at such a early stage, if we see there is a change in representation in children book, then at least something it's changed at the ground level. So this is one of our personal projects which we are thinking to illustrate. So yeah, let's see what happens, what comes out of this. Thank you so much for having us here.
Thank you so much to both of you for being a part of this. This year we were quite intentional about including artists because I think, as you both mentioned, joy has been hugely missing, or been a hard thing to come by for a lot of us, and art has been a source of so much of that joy. And it's been really great to have moderated the sessions for the past few days, and with Marissa as well, to really acknowledge the contributions of artists and the need for art in these spaces. So I'm really happy to close the final day of the creative and cultural sessions hearing from both of you. And I really look forward to working with you again in the future. Thank you to the audience. And I hope everyone has a great evening and enjoy the rest of GSWF.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye. Take care.